But anyway, it resembles a lobster trap in all the ways that matter. But I'm in freshwater here. This is a really effective minnow trap. But the great thing about it is that it collapses down like this. Hey, it's Greg here with Outdoors on the Cheap, and I'm out in the woods doing some fishing. And step one for me is to catch some minnows. It's early in the season, April, and this time of year, minnow fishing is just about the most effective way to catch fish. You know, I'm not really a catch and release type guy. I catch fish to eat them. If I'm not hungry, I don't fish. If I'm hungry, I fish. That's how I do it. I only fish for things that I want to eat, sort of thing, right? So early in the season, minnows are really where it's at. You can use worms too, that can work, but I don't have any on me here today. And I imagine, you know, I surf a lot of different fishing groups on Facebook, that sort of thing. People are always saying, where can I buy minnows? Where can I buy dew worms or worms or that sort of thing? And I think I should probably do a video on how to catch dew worms because it's really easy. You don't have to have a backyard to catch dew worms. You can catch them on a baseball field or any sort of grassy field, really. But anyway, we're talking about minnows today. And I'm going to show you a couple different kinds of minnow traps that you can buy really cheap off of eBay, Amazon, AliExpress, whatever you use. It really depends on how long you want to wait for it to show up. These are things that you can get for, if you want to wait, if you're okay with waiting a month or 2 or 3 for them to show up, you can get these for a couple dollars, shipping included, if you order them from China. So the first I'll start with is what I consider the most effective minnow trap, and I'll explain why. And this is this design. It actually resembles, and as a maritimer, I love this, it resembles a lobster trap. It's almost identical to a lobster trap. And actually, if you put it in the ocean, you'll tend to catch crabs in it. It's not big enough for a lobster. I mean, a really tiny lobster, I guess, could get in, and you could get in a lot of trouble if you took that lobster home, or if even someone saw you handling that lobster. But anyway, it resembles a lobster trap in all the ways that matter. But I'm in freshwater here. This is a really effective minnow trap. But the great thing about it is that it collapses down like this. And I'm not going to tell you where to get these things. I'm not getting sponsored by anyone. Just look for collapsible minnow trap, you know, and just find the cheapest ones. You can pick these up for like $3 off of eBay and AliExpress. Amazon probably be more like $10. But again, it all depends on how long you're willing to wait for it to show up. But it collapses down to nothing, weighs nothing, and it's as good a minnow trap as you can get. So this one here, I got some rope. It comes with, you know, just a little bit of string on it like this, but I've attached a longer thing. And it's got a couple of zippered compartments that you can use to access the fish or to put bait in. So all you do, and I have no idea why minnows like bread, but you're out in the woods for the day and you've brought a sandwich for lunch, and you just, you know, break off some of the crusts or whatever. If you're one of these people that can't handle the crust on a sandwich, I love the crust, but anyway, you just break off a few pieces of crust into this thing. And or bread, or, you know, any kind of bread type thing, right? Like that, right? I don't know how well you can see that, right? Just a few pieces of bread. You put that in, you zip it back up, and you throw it in the water. Now you got to have the right kind of spot. If you're in the right spot at the right time of day and there's minnows there, something like this might have minnows in it in a matter of 15, 20 minutes. The great thing about a trap like this is you can leave it overnight. If you've got relatively small dishes and you ate your supper and you had like a plate of beans or something like that, you put your dishes in something like this, put all your dirty dishes right in it, throw it in the water. When you wake up, it's very likely you'll have minnows in the trap, right? And they'll have cleaned your dishes for you, and you've got minnows for bait. I suppose in a really tight spot you could eat the minnows, but I've tried eating minnows most of the time. At least the kinds I can catch in rivers around here. They tend to be this variety of minnow called dace, and they taste horrible. But, you know, if you were starving, I suppose you could do that. Anyway, you just find a decent stretch of water and you put them in. I'll talk about what makes a decent stretch of water to catch minnows in a minute. The other kind of trap you can get, and this one's much, in a sense, more packable because it's so tiny, right? It's really, really small. but it's got disadvantages like anything, right? This one's ideal because if the minnow goes in, it's very unlikely the minnow will find its out. It's got to find its way to this little hole, and they're not that bright, so some of them will find their way out, but you know, maybe only 1 in 10 will find their, eventually I suppose they could all find their way out, but this is the best trap for leaving for a long period of time, overnight, waking up and there's minnows in there, right? Anyway, this sort of thing here, I'll show you how it works, if I can get the thing open. I just got this, it just came in. I love that it's so packable, but you're limited. You want to put this in relatively shallow water, maybe 2 feet deep at the most. So how does this thing work? It's been a while since I messed with one of these things. What do you do again? Oh yeah, okay, so, yeah. All right, so it's, there's no instructions on how to use it, but you just sort of adjust these things and adjust these things here. Let me see here, put this on the other side. We got it the right way? Maybe like this. Like this, yeah. Let's see here. All right. So it's like this. Okay, it looks like, it's kind of like a, you know, if you're someone from the deep south or whatever, like a crab trap or a crawfish trap, very similar. So it's designed like this. Okay, you put your bait in the middle, maybe you put a little rock or some weight there, and you know, the minnows come in. This sort of trap, again, much easier to pack in, doesn't take up a lot of room in your backpack, doesn't weigh anything, neither does the other one for that matter. These tend to be cheaper, but you kind of have to be nearby. You wouldn't leave this overnight, right? You've got your bait here. There's a little kind of bag type thing to put the bait in, but I find it effectively useless. You know, you put your bait in the center, you lower it down into the water very carefully, and you know, let's say you're just doing some fishing and you're nearby to this. It's within your eyesight, it's within your sight lines, and you're just checking it every once in a while. And when you see minnows around it, you pull it up really quick. And hopefully they can't, you know, hopefully instead of moving up, they move laterally and they jam into this corner and they can't get out. Right, so that's the idea. So I'm going to set both of these here and we'll see if we can catch some minnows. So let's bring him down to the river and see what we can make happen. All right, now I'm down here by the riverbank and I'm going to set these traps up. I find that on a river anyway, you want a stretch of still water and you want to put the trap right next to the shore. I mean, you really, if you don't have a boat, you're kind of constrained to that anyway, but that's where the minnows are. They tend to go in the shallower water near the side where it's safe and where the water is a bit slower. They can sort of see things coming and that sort of thing. Ideally a spot where the sun shines on a little bit, warms the water up and that sort of thing, but that all depends. With this trap here, it's got this little pocket for the bread. You want to put some of the bread in that pocket because bread has a tendency to float, like styrofoam, I guess, and you'll lose it. So, I mean, you're not going to get all the bread into it, of course, but you jam some of the bread into it and let the other bread just sort of, you know, be a bit of a mess. And hopefully the fish are drawn to it. Also, you want to have a rock right at the center of the trap so that it weights it down a little bit so it sinks and goes where you want it to go. All right, so I'm just going to put this one out. The bread will tend to want to float and go away. You can kind of trap the bread in the corners of the trap if you're careful. But you're gonna, you know, accept that you're gonna accept that you're gonna lose some of your bread. That's just the cost of doing business, I suppose. But anyway, you've got the bread in the little pocket there, and you just take your string and tie it to a tree or something nearby, so it doesn't get carried off by the current if there's any current. And of course, with the lobster trap, minnow trap, you just fire it in. And it doesn't matter that the things, you know, for an angler, the idea you have is the big cast, getting it far away is the best thing. But for minnows, actually like right next to the bank, right in tight to the bank is where you want things for a minnow. So I just, I have a little loop in the string here. Just gonna stick it through a little stick here. I won't go anywhere. And I'll just leave it like that. And I'll check it in 20, 30 minutes and see if I got some minnows in there, because that's, other than the bacon I've brought for my breakfast tomorrow morning, this is all I've really brought with me for gathering bait. And I'm set up on this particular fishing trip for bait fishing. So I got to catch my bait. There's other avenues to catch bait. If you can manage to hook into something with a lure or whatever, I got a few lures and things like that. With trout, you can use a fin or something like that as bait. Trout fin's excellent bait for trout, believe it or not. But anyway, I'm going to leave these, and we'll come back in half an hour and see if there's anything happening here. If the minnows are moving around and they're active, because I've caught them here in this spot before, if they're moving around and they're active, I'll have minnows here in half an hour. If they're really lethargic and not moving around that much, it might take till tomorrow morning for the minnows to show up. We'll see. So we'll see in a little bit.